All right, we are back again. Hey, everybody, it's Van Allen Plexico, and this is another episode of All of the Avengers. And in case I haven't made it clear the last couple of episodes, what I'm doing is going back and reading every issue of the Avengers, starting with issue number 1, which we did several episodes ago, obviously, and going through and just kind of discussing them. What can we take from them? What do we learn from them? How did they impact the Avengers and the Marvel Universe? What interesting characters first appeared, or how were they different? Just basically, and the creators, just basically anything and everything worth discussing and learning from those issues all the way at the beginning till all the way up to the present. Some episodes of this show, I have a co-host, a guest with me, and we have several coming up pretty soon for a very momentous few issues coming up. But in the meantime, we're kind of finishing out that run of issues leading up to number 16, of course. And so I'm just kind of knocking them out where I can here and there when I have a little time. And I thought I would go ahead and jump into issue number 13. Now, if you want to help this show continue and help me continue going through all of the Avengers and bringing on guests and providing you with this whatever insights we can provide, then go to www.avengersassemble.net. Not only has that website been there for something like, let's see, 05, 15, 28 years now. My goodness, it was there before Marvel.com. Not only has it been there forever and has tons of interesting stuff, I've been restoring the old parts that were lost over the years, but also there are links to all the videos in this series previously. And also there you can click on the button to become a patron. So if you go to avengersassemble.net or just go to patreon.com/alloftheavengers, then you can sign up and become a patron of this show, and I will thank you. And you can contribute to keeping this show going and be part of the show. All right, and there's other benefits too, if you'll see if you go there and look. So in fact, as I like to do, let's go ahead and thank the fine folks who have I'm going to type it in. I didn't have it ready. I apologize. I did not have it ready. But here are the fine folks who are currently keeping our show going. They include Christopher Anastasia, David Wright, Earl Ricks, Emmanuel Seaman, George Gaston, MVP Captivating Kathy Bright, and Ryan Daly. And all of you folks are awesome, and we appreciate you very much. And I'm going to continue to try, along with our guests, to continue to deliver you a good product. I did ask the question on the Patreon page a few days ago, do you want me to continue providing the episodes as sort of early exclusives for the patrons first before then putting them on YouTube? And most folks said just go ahead and put them on YouTube, but there were a couple of people that did say we like getting them first. So as long as there are some people who do enjoy getting them first, I'm going to keep putting them there first. Okay. When it's unanimous that nobody wants me to, that's different. But for right now, if people feel like that's what they're appreciating, then by all means, I'm going to continue doing it. All right. So thanks to you patrons, and I hope that others watching will go to avengersassemble.net or patreon.com/alloftheavengers and help with this quest to read all of the Avengers and talk about them. Now, this issue is Avengers number 13, which came out. It's always hard to see the little print down there. February 1965 issue. So it was put together probably somewhere in the middle to late 1964 and probably came out about November. They usually ran about 3 months ahead. I think the cover date was usually about 3 months ahead, just to give them a longer shelf life on the comics racks and the magazine racks. So late 64. Sometimes I like to think in movie terms, and in movie terms that means this issue came out around the same time as Goldfinger, the James Bond movie Goldfinger. Yeah, isn't that interesting? This issue gives us, I believe, the first appearance of Count Nefaria. Now, Nefaria is an interesting guy because he pops up occasionally here and there as the leader in the Avengers and in the X-Men, I believe, and maybe other places as well. Seems like everybody appears sooner or later in the Fantastic Four, but I know for certain that he appears early on in the Avengers and then a bit later in the X-Men as a crime lord. He is the leader of the Maggia, and of course, the Maggia. This is like when Marvel would call zombies Zuvimbies or something, you know, or have blood colored black rather than red. These are all things that the comics code kind of required them to do. They didn't really want to say mafia, so they would say Maggia, and people were to understand, you know, what that was. And, you know, Marvel over the years has had several interesting Maggia bosses. I believe Silvermane that fought Spider-Man was a Maggia guy, and there were others. I want to say that even like Hammerhead, the Spider-Man villain, was involved with the Maggia. But Nefaria early on was supposed to be the head. And this may even be the first time the Maggia appeared in a Marvel comic. It's always tricky to make those pronouncements because obviously the Avengers came on a bit later than the Fantastic Four and Spider-Man and the Hulk, you know, and a few other comics, but it's very possible. Now we'll do our usual critique of the cover. Yeah, this is a pretty cool one. I really do like the depiction of Count Nefaria there at the controls of this machine, like he's the Phantom of the Opera or something, and he's playing like some music that's affecting the Avengers. Oh, I wanted to mention there are two other really important things about Nefaria that I want to get out there before we dig into this issue. And honestly, I don't have that much to say about the interior of this issue. We're going to probably, you know, get through this issue pretty quickly, honestly. But there's several things about Nefaria of note. One is that he is the father of Whitney Frost, also known as Madame Mask, who later is Tony Stark, or really more Iron Man's girlfriend. I know that sounded weird to say Iron Man and not Tony Stark, but it was like, you know, it was kind of like how the Black Cat liked Spider-Man more than she liked Peter Parker. Well, Whitney Frost, Madame Mask, kind of liked Iron Man more than she liked Tony Stark. So, and you get those odd, and this is funny. Maybe later on when we get into, you know, get further along in the history of the comics, we'll do some crossovers with Iron Man, and we'll see in those great Bill Mantlo issues toward the end of the night, into the issue like the 90s up to hundreds. Where Iron Man and Whitney Frost would kiss, and it was their masks kissing, and it was just weird, but you know. But that was one thing, was that he was Whitney Frost's father. And the other interesting thing about him is that later on in like the mid 70s, around 1977, 78, he gains enormous powers and basically becomes Superman fighting the Avengers. You really do get a battle of like, what would it be like if the Avengers fought Superman? And that's an awesome story, written, of course, by Jim Shooter, I believe, but drawn by John Byrne as George Perez was taking a little break there. So lots of interesting stuff about Nefaria. Also in this issue, you will see also on the cover, we're back to having a lot of words on the cover. I get this one, right? Even the world's mightiest crusaders find themselves helplessly trapped within the castle of Count Nefaria, which is actually the title. So that's cool. And sometimes the title on the cover is not the title on the inside, which always used to bother me as a kid. But I don't know that we need this little box here. You'll gasp in amazement at the most unexpected final panel you've ever seen. Is it the most unexpected final panel we've ever seen? Maybe. We'll get to that in a few minutes. And then, of course, down here we have another jaggedy balloon with C. Rick Jones and his teen brigade imprisoned in the Dungeon of Doom. This raises a question that I have, because Rick Jones and the teen brigade keep popping up in these early issues of the Avengers. I know Rick's always been relatively popular. Were he and the teen brigade together? Were they ever that popular? I mean, I don't ever really see them mentioned for or against in the letters pages. They're just kind of there. And they don't seem like a thing that Stan would have been big on. They seem like, correct me if I'm wrong here, listeners, viewers. The Teen Brigade seems to me like to have Jack Kirby written all over it, right? Jack loved teenage boys getting together and having some kind of a club or organization where they could help. There's the Newsboy Legion, and there's the Yancey Street Gang. There's all these times, even in his war comics, the soldiers were kind of that way. There's all these times that you have these different guys with different personalities and nicknames and stuff who work together. And I think David Wright and I talked a little bit about this before, about how we've never really gotten to know the Teen Brigade. We don't barely know their names. We don't know really what they're all about. They're just these guys that hang out with Rick Jones. And, I've said before, I don't fully understand why Rick Jones hangs out with the Avengers. But we've talked about that before. All right. So let's get on into it here. Still got the same corner box, by the way, just kind of carrying over. So we're back with Don Heck and Dick Ayers, and something about the art on this issue doesn't quite meet up to my expectations. I felt like Don Heck's art with Ayers has been, I don't want to say I'm not a huge fan of Jack Kirby's art on the early Avengers issues. I felt like he was putting more of his great work into Fantastic Four, maybe, than Avengers. It's still great, but it's still early 60s Kirby. But I was thinking then, honestly, that Don Heck in some ways carried it a little better in the Avengers. But I don't love what he does here. So now we find out that what actually this issue is about the world turning against the Avengers and the reason why. And they're wanted dead or alive for treason. So, and by the way, here goes Stan again. Another majestic milestone in the Marvel Age of Comics. Thank you for your self-critique, Stan. I'm aware that you think that you're awesome. And we all think that you're awesome, but certainly you do. The other question I have is, when did Iron Man start having these little rivets in his forehead? Because that's the thing that Don Heck and Dick Ayers do, and I just really don't like that. I don't like the way Iron Man is depicted in a lot of the early Avengers comics, though, which is funny because, when I started reading comics myself in the late 70s with, you had George Perez doing Iron Man in the Avengers, and I thought Iron Man in the Avengers looked great. And then over in his own book, you had different artists, and he didn't always look as good. So I was always disappointed that Iron Man looked better in the Avengers than he did in his own comic, but whatever. All right. So this is one of those splash pages that's not actually part of the story. It's just kind of another cover, really. So we get going with a gigantic bunch of little panels where these guys are, I guess, Maggia crooks, and Iron Man and Thor show up and take them down, and the Maggia is very upset, so they call their boss over in Europe, Count Nefaria, with the Electro Disc. I just love it. And Nefaria decides that he is going to do something about the Avengers. Okay. Again, I don't have a lot to say about this one. We're going to zip right along. I do like how Don Heck depicts and Dick Ayers depict Nefaria looking like this European count somehow. Okay, so there's Jan reading about how Nefaria is going to move his castle to America, how he's going to set up his trap for the Avengers. Stone by stone, and that was kind of like something that rich people were doing, I think, back in the 50s and 60s, were moving things from Europe to America, quote unquote, stone by stone. You talk about how rich he is and everything, and then he's going to invite the Avengers to come for charity, and so Jan's like, "We have to go; it's for charity." By the way, I do like them showing her with her mask off, because she looks really good in the Wasp costume, but without that stupid whole head mask thing. I mean, everybody knows who they are at this point, right? So why are they even having to disguise their identity? Because everybody knows that Hank and Jan are the Giant Man / Ant-Man and the Wasp. So, but anyway, and there's Rick. Rick's just hanging out with his sweater vest on. I don't know. So they go to the Count's castle, and we have more of this the repartee with Jan and Hank and other men just continues to, I'll admit he's good looking, Jan, but I'll bet that beard would tickle when he kisses a gal. Why, Henry Pym, you actually sound jealous. Thank heavens. All right. So they get in the castle. And again, I'm going to move things along. For some reason, Nefaria gives them each a bedroom. They go and check out, and Pym kind of likes his throne that he's sitting in. And they all get frozen. And then once they've been like scanned and frozen, he creates his own versions of the Avengers that are under his control, who basically tell the Pentagon leaders, we are taking over the country. All laws are now gone. I love this. Giant Man says, within 1 hour, we shall cancel all existing laws and issue our own. From now on, only the Avengers will make and enforce the law. This sounds kind of like the Squadron Supreme, doesn't it? Or the Squadron Sinister, I guess. It kind of reminds me of them. But anyway, so basically, Avengers declare war on the U.S. There's the Pentagon. I used to live right next to the Pentagon, by the way. The generals are deciding what to do. They're like, we don't want to go to war with the Avengers, but dang it, we have to. So here's the wanted Avengers, dead or alive. And here's the Teen Brigade. Again, they all have the same color hair, by the way, which is kind of funny. Who are the Teen Brigade? And I want to know more about, let's put it this way. I either want the Teen Brigade to be more involved and let's actually know who they are and care about them, or I don't want them at all. Having them just pop up and be anonymous and then go away is kind of annoying. But there they are. You can always tell Rick because he's got the sweater vest on and the brown pants. So anyway, they get captured by the Maggia, put in the Dungeon of Doom. There's just so much dialogue. I'm just kind of moving along here because honestly, I just moving along. And so the Avengers are kind of looking for Rick and the Teen Brigade, and Nefaria kind of, they're going to join you later. Once you have discovered, you will not have time to worry about those fool teenagers. So all of a sudden, here comes the army, the soldiers trying to take down the Avengers. The Avengers are like, why is the army coming after us? Well, we can't worry about that right now. Let's just attack them. This is actually this panel here with Iron Man bending the barrel of a tank. I want to say that there's a much later issue of Iron Man that basically recreates this panel with Iron Man like up on a tank bending the gun, which is pretty cool. So he fights the tanks, he fights the jets. They don't know why they're having to do this, but we get this usual, battle, trying to learn why they're under attack. They race to their emergency headquarters. Who knew that the Avengers had an emergency headquarters in a cave? But guess they do. And they can't remember their visit to Nefaria's castle, so they start to think that Nefaria must be the one responsible. Now, meanwhile, we get a one-panel cameo appearance of the Fantastic Four. If the Avengers really have turned against America, we've got to aid in the fight to defeat them. It'll be a pleasure. I've been itching to grab that loudmouth Thor by them yellow curls of his. So once again, we get the sense that the Fantastic Four are really what Stan would enjoy writing more, and that here we are kind of doing in Avengers is like almost a second choice. I kind of hate that. But anyway, so moving along, Nefaria is picking up a radio beam from Dungeon B. Those brats are trying to radio for help, so Nefaria starts torturing them. Thor and Giant Man and the Wasp get frozen. Cap swings in with his. This is interesting. He has his shield on a nylon emergency cord so he can bring it in behind him. He fights the Maggia, and he rescues the Teen Brigade, and then gets captured. But then Iron Man gets loose, and Thor and the other Avengers gets loose because they got that formula to save them. We're to the last page, and the Avengers are cracking down, taking down all the Maggia, and Nefaria is trying to escape. And let's just kind of go through it at the end here. The hammer of Thor shall change his plans. Stay back. Don't hurt me. I've harmed no one. All I did was send images of you to the Pentagon. It was a joke, a prank, nothing more. Stay back. So suddenly this great, rich, powerful European aristocrat is just doing harmless pranks. That's all he was doing, was pranks. If you spare me, I'll give you half of my Maggia empire. You'll be rich beyond your dreams. Have you heard enough, General? Yes, Captain America, I believe I have. So he's just admitted to the military that it was all him doing this and not the Avengers. I should have known the Avengers could never be guilty of treason. And as for you, Nefaria, there's no place for you here. You'll be deported at once. So this is, I think, the first villain in Marvel history. I may be wrong on this, but I think I can say with authority, this is the first supervillain in Marvel history whose punishment is deportation. There we go. No, you can't send me back. The Maggia punishes failure. No. So, man, old Nefaria really kind of melts down at the very end here. That is your problem, Excellency, not ours. Take him away. And meanwhile, here is at the very end, because, you know, we've talked about this over and over, that they tend to like cram the whole ending into the last page. Again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then a box. So basically 9, 10 panels on the last page trying to get the whole ending of the story in, where Hank says, I wonder where the Wasp is. I haven't seen her since. Rick, what is it? What happened? Speak up, boy. Tell me. During the fighting, a stray bullet hit her. Just a 1 in a million chance. She was trying to protect us. It all happened so fast. No, she's so still, so lifeless. And so, as one adventure comes to an end, another begins. An adventure in life and death, one which is destined to take the mighty Avengers to the farthest reaches of Earth and beyond in search of the unknown, which I'm not quite sure how that has to do with, like, getting the Wasp to the hospital for a gunshot wound, but okay. And this was the ending that we were told on the cover was to be like the most shocking ending we've ever seen. And I got to say, the Wasp getting shot, it is pretty shocking, but there you go. So the other observation I just quickly wanted to make about this issue is I think that we can all see now why they made the big change with number 16, because there's only so much you can do with the Avengers the way that Stan was doing it at this point. And maybe Don Heck. We've talked before, Jack Kirby would basically plot the story Stan would script is kind of the story that we are told. I don't know if Don Heck comes up with these and then Stan scripts, or if Stan was having to actually write the whole thing. But in any case, it seemed like Stan had kind of run up against a wall of the Avengers are hanging out, and then there's some villain that's up to something, and they go, and there are some twists and turns, and at the end, they get the whole thing hurriedly finished up by the last panel of the last page. And we needed something fresh. I don't think there's any doubt. We needed something fresh. And so changing out the team and making it more about the internal dynamics of the team with, Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch and Hawkeye with Cap, I think that is going to be more effective than just having this all-star team that fights some random villain every month. So while I do love having the all-star team, it did feel here like it's starting to get a little stale, honestly. They did some great stuff with Kang. They did some great stuff bringing in Wonder Man, but now they're just kind of back to the villain of the month. And, without any actual internal dynamic, without any character stuff, it just becomes a fight, a clever collection of fight scenes, and then something happens. So anyway, I don't lament that this whole approach to the Avengers is about to go away in a few issues. We're keeping an eye on the Yubawazi report, which is that boys and men can still be helped to learn how to fight with Yubiwaza. And clearly Yoshi is the only woman allowed to do it because only boys and men can master it. Well, that's too bad. Let's see. Anything coming up cool? Thor, Giant Man, Hulk, Tales to Astonish. Sergeant Fury still gets his he still has his own comic, which is fascinating. The Merry Marvel Marching Society, again, is just a mess of text. Would any kid read this? I don't know. And I looked through, I didn't really see anything fascinating on the letters page this issue either, although people did like the cover of Avengers issue number 9 with Wonder Man, I believe. So let's go ahead and wrap up there. This was not the greatest issue, and I just don't have a whole lot to say about it, honestly. We will see you guys for issue number 14 coming up soon. And that's been all of the Avengers. We'll see you next time. Remember, www.avengersassemble.net and become a patron. Thank you so much.